Let's talk about one of the deepest prisons people live in, the need to be liked. It doesn't look like a prison at first. It feels polite, friendly, kind, but over time it becomes a quiet form of self-abandonment. We start editing ourselves just to fit into rooms where we were never meant to belong. We wear masks that smile even when we're uncomfortable. We say yes when our soul is screaming no. We agree just to avoid conflict, nod just to stay accepted, and slowly, without realizing it, we begin disappearing. The need to be liked makes you shrink. It makes you play small in conversations, mute your truth, and betray your boundaries just to keep people comfortable. But here's the truth. If being yourself makes someone else uncomfortable, that's not your problem to fix. The most dangerous thing about needing to be liked is that it keeps you performing for love instead of living in it. You start believing that your worth depends on how well you please others, how softly you speak, how easily you forgive, how much you give without asking for anything in return. But peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being aligned with who you are, what you believe, and what your soul needs. The moment you stop needing everyone to approve of you, you begin to breathe differently. Your energy shifts. You stand taller. You say things you've been holding back for years, not because you want to hurt anyone, but because you finally decided to stop hurting yourself. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to please everyone, you start attracting the right ones. People who respect your truth instead of punishing you for it. People who don't need you to shrink to love you. You are not here to be universally liked. You're here to be deeply real. And real people will always make some people uncomfortable. That's the cost of authenticity. But it's also the price of freedom. So release the need to be liked. Stop performing. Stop chasing approval that was never yours to earn. Because peace doesn't require you to be liked. It requires you to be honest. Let's be honest. Most of us were raised to believe that saying no is unkind, that it's selfish, rude, or cold. From a young age, we were rewarded for being agreeable, for being the one who says yes, for being easy to work with, or so helpful. And somewhere along the way, that small word no became tangled up with guilt. But no is not rejection, it's protection. It's not an act of cruelty, it's an act of clarity. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you say no to something that could restore you. Every time you agree out of guilt, you quietly abandon a part of yourself that needed care, rest, or peace. Over time, those small betrayals add up. You wake up one day exhausted, resentful, and unsure why you feel so disconnected from your own life. We often forget that boundaries are not walls, they're doors. They don't shut people out. They teach people how to walk in. Saying no is not about rejection, it's about direction. You're guiding your energy toward what aligns with your values, your well-being, and your truth. And here's what's powerful. When you start saying no without apology, you discover who respects your boundaries and who only respected your compliance. Some people will fall away when you stop overextending yourself, and that's okay. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life once you start valuing yourself. The guilt that comes after saying no is not a signal that you did something wrong. It's just your old conditioning trying to survive. You were trained to believe that love must always come with sacrifice, that goodness means overgiving. But real love, healthy love, doesn't demand that you drain yourself to deserve it. Saying no to something that isn't right for you is actually a yes to peace, a yes to your emotional stability, a yes to the version of you that's no longer running on empty. And the truth is, overthinking is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it takes you nowhere. You move, you twist, you turn, but at the end of the day, you haven't moved forward 1 inch. You're exhausted, not enlightened. We all know what that loop feels like when your mind replays the same moment over and over again, as if thinking about it one more time will somehow change what already happened. It's like trying to find peace in a storm by analyzing every drop of rain. Overthinking is not clarity, it's control in disguise. It's your mind's desperate attempt to protect you from pain, rejection, or uncertainty. You believe if you can just think it through enough times, you'll find a way to avoid getting hurt. But peace doesn't come from predicting the future. It comes from trusting yourself to handle it when it arrives. There's a difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection helps you grow. Rumination keeps you stuck. Reflection says, what did I learn from this? Rumination says, why did this happen to me? Reflection opens your heart. Rumination traps you inside your head. We live in a world that glorifies busyness, even in our thoughts. We're taught that if we're not worrying, we're not caring, but caring deeply and worrying endlessly are not the same thing. One brings understanding, the other brings anxiety. Peace begins when you stop demanding perfect answers to imperfect situations. You will never think your way out of uncertainty. You can only breathe your way through it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to your own mind is, I don't have to figure this out right now. Here's the hard truth. Overthinking often comes from a lack of trust. Trust in life, trust in others, trust in yourself. You replay every conversation because you don't trust that you handled it well. You analyze every decision because you don't trust that ye made the right one. But growth doesn't happen in overanalysis. It happens in acceptance. When you stop overthinking, you make room for peace to enter. You start sleeping better. You start listening to your intuition again. The quiet, steady voice that always knew what was right before the noise of fear took over. Sometimes peace isn't found in solving every problem. It's found in surrendering to the truth that not everything needs to be solved today. So when your thoughts start to spiral, pause, breathe. Say to yourself, I don't need to control everything. I just need to trust that I'll know what to do when it's time. Because peace doesn't live in the answers. It lives in the trust that you'll find them when you're ready. Comparison is one of the quietest ways we betray ourselves. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It whispers when you scroll through social media and suddenly feel behind in life. It whispers when someone celebrates their success, and instead of feeling joy, you feel a knot in your stomach. It whispers when you start questioning your worth because someone else seems happier, richer, thinner, or more loved. Comparison is the thief of joy, but it's also the thief of peace. Because every time you measure your life against someone else's highlight reel, you disconnect from gratitude for your own. You begin to believe the illusion that someone else's light dims your own, when in truth, light doesn't compete, it coexists. Here's what makes comparison so dangerous. It convinces you that life is a race. It makes you chase timelines that were never meant for you. You start rushing your own growth, judging your progress, and losing faith in your path, all because someone else's journey looks shinier from a distance. But what you don't see are the unseen chapters in their story. the tears behind their smiles, the doubts behind their confidence, the sacrifices behind their success. Everyone's journey has both sunlight and shadows, but most people only show one side. The moment you compare, you take your eyes off your own garden and wonder, bah. For many people, the idea of being alone feels terrifying. Silence feels too loud. Stillness feels too empty. So we fill our lives with noise, people, distractions, endless scrolling, anything to avoid sitting alone with our thoughts. But here's a truth that most of us learn the hard way. Being alone and being lonely are not the same thing. Loneliness is the ache of missing connection. Solitude is the peace of meeting yourself. When you're afraid of being alone, you start clinging to things that aren't good for you, relationships that drain you, friendships that no longer align, environments that suffocate your spirit. You settle, not because you're content, but because the silence scares you more than the pain. But here's the secret no one tells you. Peace lives in that silence you've been avoiding. Solitude is not punishment, it's preparation. It's where you get to hear the parts of yourself that you've been drowning out with busyness and noise. It's where your soul gets a chance to exhale. When you stop running from your own company, you begin to discover who you actually are, what you love, what you value, what you believe in when no one else's opinion is echoing in your mind. You realize that you don't need constant validation to feel secure because you've learned to be your own anchor. Being alone teaches you emotional independence. It builds a kind of inner strength that relationships can't give you. You stop needing someone to fill your emptiness and start realizing you were never empty to begin with. You were just disconnected from yourself. The truth is, when you're comfortable being alone, you stop tolerating people who make you feel lonely, even when you're with them. You stop chasing love that costs you your peace. You stop begging for crumbs of attention because you finally realized that your presence is already enough. There's a profound kind of ode in learning to sit with your solitude, the quiet mornings, the still nights, the moments when the world feels distant, but your own heartbeat feels like home. That's where transformation happens. That's where self-respect begins. So instead of fearing solitude, embrace it. Light a candle, play music, take yourself on a walk. Learn to enjoy your own company, because when you make peace with being alone, you become unshakable. You'll no longer need to chase people to feel whole. You'll attract them from a place of wholeness. You'll no longer fear being left. You'll know you can always return to yourself. Being alone is not the absence of love. It's the space where you remember you are love. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that not everyone who comes with you is meant to go with you. Some people were only meant to be chapters, not the entire book. And holding on to them out of loyalty, guilt, or fear doesn't make you strong. It makes you tired. We don't talk enough about emotional energy, how people affect the way we feel in their presence. You can walk into a room and feel lighter just because someone kind is there. Or you can leave a conversation feeling empty, anxious, or smaller than you were before, all because someone drained you of your peace. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some people thrive on chaos, on drama, on control. They feed off your empathy. They take your kindness as an invitation to take more. And before you know it, you're pouring from an empty cup, convincing yourself that being the bigger person is a noble thing, when in reality, it's slowly breaking you. Protecting your peace doesn't make you unkind, it makes you wise. You can love people deeply and still recognize that they are not good for your spirit. You can care about someone and still choose distance. It's not bitterness, it is boundaries. Energy draining people often reveal themselves when you stop catering to them, when you stop explaining, fixing, and justifying. When you start saying no, they'll call you selfish. No. We live in a world that praises strength but misunderstands what it truly means. We're taught to smile through pain, to say, I'm fine, even when we're breaking, to show up like nothing hurts, because somewhere deep down we fear that if people see our cracks, they'll think we're weak. But here's the truth. Pretending you're okay doesn't make you strong. It makes you disconnected. It builds walls around your heart, not bridges toward healing. Every time you swallow your pain, every time you hide your truth behind a polite smile, you teach yourself that your emotions are a burden. And over time, that mask becomes heavy. We pretend because we want to be seen as capable, brave, composed. But the irony is that real bravery begins the moment we stop pretending. Real strength is standing in front of your own pain and saying, yes, this hurts, but I'm still here. There's something deeply human about allowing yourself to be seen in your struggle. It invites honesty. It invites connection. When we share our truth, even quietly, even with trembling words, we remind others that they don't have to pretend either, that they too can put down their mask for a while and just breathe. Pretending you're okay might protect you from temporary judgment, but it robs you of genuine connection. People can only love you to the extent that they can see you. And if you never let them see your truth, your fear, your grief, your exhaustion, they'll only love the version of you that's performing. Here's what happens when you stop pretending. You stop living in survival mode. You stop apologizing for being human. You start feeling lighter because honesty releases the weight you've been carrying in silence. You begin to trust yourself again because you're finally honoring what's real instead of suppressing it. It takes courage to say, I'm not okay right now. It takes courage to admit that you need rest or help or space. But those words are not a confession of weakness. They're an act of truth-telling. And truth-telling is healing. Remember this, vulnerability doesn't make you fragile. It makes you free. Every tear you've held back, every feeling you've buried, every truth you've swallowed, they're all waiting to be released, not judged. You don't have to hold it together all the time. You're not a machine, you're a soul. You're allowed to pause, you're allowed to fall apart. You're allowed to admit that you're tired of pretending, because pretending to be okay is surviving, but being honest about your pain is how you start living. So take off the mask, breathe, let the truth of who you are be seen, not the polished, perfect version, but the real one, because that's where peace lives, like not in perfection, but in presence. Unrealistic expectations are silent destroyers of peace. They sneak into your heart disguised as ambition, love, or loyalty, but what they really create is pressure, the kind that steals your joy one unmet standard at a time. We expect ourselves to do everything right, to always be strong, patient, understanding, successful, and put together. We expect others to love us the way we love them, to understand our needs without us saying a word, to never disappoint or misunderstand us. And when reality doesn't meet those expectations, which it rarely does, we feel betrayed, angry, or unworthy. But here's the truth. Expectations are pre-written disappointments. They make us believe life owes us something for all our effort. And when life doesn't cooperate, we suffer. Not because of what happened, but because we believed it should have been different. It's not the event that breaks our peace. It's the story we tell ourselves about how it should have been. You see, peace doesn't live in perfection. It lives in acceptance. It's born the moment we stop demanding that life, people, or even ourselves perform flawlessly and start allowing things to be human, messy, unpredictable, imperfect. When you remove peace doesn't come from adding more into your life. It comes from removing what doesn't belong. It's not found in another achievement, another relationship, or another validation. It's found in subtraction, in letting go of what drains, what limits, and what lies. Every single thing you remove, the need to be liked, the guilt for saying no, the endless overthinking, the comparisons, the fear of being alone, the people who drain you, the pretending, the unrealistic expectations, and the negative self-talk, each one clears space for peace to finally move in. Think of it like clearing a cluttered room. For years, you've been trying to decorate over the mess, adding more positivity, more gratitude, more affirmations. But peace doesn't come when you decorate chaos. It comes when you clean it out. You don't have to chase peace. You just have to stop clinging to what's blocking it. Stop performing for approval. Stop apologizing for boundaries. Stop fearing solitude. Stop carrying what was never yours to carry. Because here's the truth. You already have everything you need to live peacefully inside you. It's not something you find, it's something you return to. And when you finally remove the things that keep you disconnected from yourself, what's left isn't emptiness. It's clarity, it's freedom, it's peace. Peace doesn't knock on noisy doors. It waits for quiet hearts. And the moment you choose to release what no longer serves you, peace doesn't just visit, it stays,